Daryl, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
When we get to the, we're just going to talk about it. When we get to the submitting your competencies for us to review, do you have a problem with us calling on you just to make some comments with us right there, since you have recently done that and Dr. Revis went over some things with you, just to, because you can see things, the students can see things on their end that we can't see.
Okay, sure, no problem.
So just if you don't mind, just make a comment or two when we get there, and there may be another student or two that wants to chime in, but at least if you'll just start with us.
Okay, sounds great.
Thanks, Daryl.
No problem.
We'll give it a minute or about another minute. Dr. Revis, the people are slow chiming in this morning or this afternoon, and some schools are on spring break already.
Jane, that's it.
We only have what, 14?
That's counting
12?
you and that's counting you
Yeah.
and me. So we've got about half at this point. Well, we'll see. Well, we'll go ahead and get started for those that are here, and then let me see. Okay. Well, welcome to week 12, and we hope that you're enjoying this much better weather, fighting the pollen right now. Yesterday it looked like a dust storm. Today was much better down in our area, but I imagine in the mountains too, Dr. Revis, you have a lot of pollen.
Yes, we do. Not quite here yet, but
yeah, we're experiencing
early.
a lot on the East Coast right now, a lot. It reminds me, I look out and it reminds me, some of them don't remember when we had chalkboards in schools, and remember the chalk dust. It looks like chalk dust to me. And when I was little, I didn't know what pollen was when I was little, and I wondered where all that chalk dust was coming from, because that's what it looked like. But anyway, welcome. I hope you're all safe and doing well. And I know they're relaxing things everywhere. Please be careful. Just please don't take it for granted and get careless, and I just don't want any of you to get sick. We've already experienced some things. But Dr. Revis, would you like to say anything, and would you like to say anything about our student in your class?
Yes, well, as those of you know, I sent out an email with the sad news about classmate Angela Griffith. I have not heard back from her. I don't feel like I can release her address without her permission, but it was very sudden, unexpected, and just devastating to her and her family, I'm sure. So I just ask that we all keep her and her family in our prayers, and as soon as she's able to come back online with us, you know, or corresponds to me, I will get you her address so you can maybe send her a condolence. But it's just tragic, and it's one of those things that um, it's just hard to even imagine what she's going through.
Dr. Revis, all of them already have her email. So if they choose to, they can just send her an email.
Yeah.
That's all, they already have that information.
Right.
So that is a way. Just very quickly, let's look at week 12. And this is how it's going to look today or this evening. We're just going to make some brief comments about task 2 and your Zoom assignment of the AAPTEL. I'm going to camp out with review of task 3 a little bit. There's some things I think we need to go over and reminders of task 4 of some things. Just a reminder of the case study, we're going to do that, and some other things that's due. We're going to camp out a little bit with a review of the Competency Folio. Dr. Revis is going to be prepared to lead in that, and then we'll give some time for questions and answers. Please look at the yellow. Now, I've gone through and I've looked at what the next 2 or 3 weeks look like, or the next 11, this is week 12, next 2 weeks anyway. And again, all of it's beginning to come to closure, and we have to begin saying that simply because there has to be enough time for Dr. Revis and me to make sure at the end that all of your work is completed, cleared, it's gone through task stream, there's no problems, before we have to submit to the registrar's office our grades. And nothing can be pending out there with you. We have to have you cleared. So we have to start now, looking at the end, because it is almost here. But just quickly look at this. Task 2 of the AAPTEL is due to the Blackboard's AAPTEL assignment Dropbox this week. That would be this coming Sunday. AAPTEL task 2 peer reviews this Sunday, or by this Sunday. Task 3 of the AAPTEL is due this Sunday for our review, and we're going to go over that again today. And then I want you to look when task 3 is due. Task 3 of the AAPTEL is due to the assignment Dropbox by 9:00 p.m. on 4/11/21. Make sure when you get there, and we're going to go over this again, that you've presented to your principal and to a team of your teachers from the school, maybe the school improvement team if possible. If you can't meet with the staff or SIT team, at least present to your PLC. Provide a disclaimer if the principal does not allow you to make a faculty presentation. You can always put it in there, but you've got to present to some representation of your faculty, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. And then task 4 of the AAPTEL is due to Blackboard for the instructor review and Dropbox on week 13. And remember, you don't have to complete peer reviews for task 4, and that's the remaining 9 competencies. We'll talk about that a little bit more. AAPTEL task 3 peer reviews due in Blackboard's assignment Dropbox by 9 p.m. on 4/11 week 13 as well. And then the case study 2 for the AAPTEL is going to be due this week as well. So you've got a lot. You got a lot out there, but you've had time to work on, and I know a lot of you have been working on that already. So I'm going to come out of this and just remind you that let me move this over. Just remind you, or let me minimize that right now, hide it. Just remind you that you're still responsible for the readings. These materials right here will continue to help you with some of the work that you are completing. The assignments right here, that's what I've just gone over. That's just a reminder. I want you to look at the bottom of this page. You'll see today's agenda in there as well. Then I want you to look here. This is in Dr. Revis has this as well. Week 12 Zoom coaching video. This is archived. This is what Dr. Lamb did last year this time. He provided a step-by-step again for setting up your competency folio, how to write competencies with artifacts and submission for reviewer comments. And this video has been archived so that you can go back and use this as a reference as well. So I would encourage you, if you have not started that process or if you're having trouble, to go back and look at this archived video as well as some of the others that we have already provided you with. And again, we're going to be talking about this in more detail in a little bit, but I just want to go ahead and show you where some of these things are. Dr. Revis, if you would just begin with talking about task 2 work, and then your just reflection on the videos that for the AAPTEL that was done.
Okay, well, in task 2, I was very pleased with the work that came in. Many of you had to do a little tweak, and I hope you don't get tired of me telling you I would suggest adding this or moving this or whatever, because I feel like one of my jobs is to get you that 4 when your work goes to your evaluator. So never have I felt like that you were fighting me on any of my recommendations or suggestions, but it's just we're striving for that 4. But I want to make a few comments about the Zoom. Dr. Stedman, I was blown away at some of the conversations that I heard about the AAPTEL.
I was as well.
And every group talked about how the AAPTEL was a lot of work, a lot of research,
yes,
but you learned so much and feel like you can take this and apply this to your leadership role. And I want to share, I think it was team 1, that would have been Danielle, Faralina, Pam, and Kendria. They got on a discussion about that their principal had mentioned to them, you need to lose those teacher eyes. And I think Faralina said, I'm struggling with losing my teacher perspective. So, I remember the first night in class, Dr. Stedman, you talked about the expectation now, pulling off that teacher hat and putting on that leadership hat. But I want to encourage you, don't ever, ever lose that teacher perspective.
No.
Because that makes you a better leader. When we're able to see things from many different perspectives, that adds to your leadership abilities.
Absolutely.
Don't think that you're having to forget that teacher perspective. Always keep it, but now you're looking at it from the big picture, and there may be many perspectives that you're going to have to look at. If you're a parent, you're always going to use your parent perspective in your decision making, and that's great. That's what you should do. So don't struggle with that. We're trying to get you to see the big picture, but we don't want you to shed off all those other perspectives as well. So I just had to say that, and I did really enjoy hearing those.
And Dr. Revis, the only thing I'll say is I did as well. I saw a lot of effort that went into the quality time that they spent talking about the AAPTEL. Task 2. I think we've got most people straight on some of the things that they're having to correct, Dr. Revis. There were some things that had to be, but it's coming back in now, and it's, it is being corrected. But remember, task 2 is you've got to show us the results of what you've done. Task 1 was where you taught about it, but task 2 is where you got to show us something. And this, that is where, you got to show us the results of what you have done as a result of the research that you did in task 1. But it's all coming together now. And I think, that I don't think there's anybody in my group now that does not understand what they're supposed to do. If they are, they, you know, speak up now and we'll go over anything that we need to. But Dr. Revis, you have any comments about your task 2?
No, I really think through this review, peer and instructor review process, I think people have started, like you say, making the revisions and getting those back in. And so I think we're going to be good on task 2, because task 2 is the crux of what you're going to need in order to task 3.
Now, I will tell you, I pulled up the template on purpose. You cannot deviate from the template, and I'll tell you why. Well, you shouldn't be deviating from the template, and I'll tell you why. Where Dr. Revis and I, we're trained as instructors. We're going to read it and we can find what you're talking about. When you're an evaluator, and Dr. Revis has been an evaluator, you've got a rubric that you follow, and if they don't see it, it's not there. They're not going to go dig for it like Dr. Revis and I are going to dig for it. Now, with that being said, Dr. Revis and I have talked. We talk sometimes more than one time a week. But we've talked and we understand that if we could change some things, we would change it. But we didn't make this up. This comes from the university, and we have to follow what the university gives. However, I did make a decision this week simply because the work, after I went back and looked at it, I had about 3 students that did this. But task 1, you know, if I was writing this, there would not be a prompt 1 and a prompt 2. There would only be a prompt 1, and everything would be all inclusive. And that's what some of you have done. However, when you write it up and you don't show that, then it looks like you've only done that, even though you've got stuff embedded in there, if you don't have some type of disclaimer or some type of explanation. So what I didn't require anybody to go back and undo what they had done, because they had done like building efficacy and empowerment among staff. They had talked about that as it relates to their school and the work that they had done, but they had also mixed their what they had done and would have done in prompt 2. They had put it up there, which makes sense to me, and it makes sense to Dr. Revis as well. But it's not written that way. So what I had them to do, and just don't go, if we've cleared you, don't go back and change anything. We're just saying that it's important that you follow the template from this point on, because I had those students to just go back up here and to where they put prompt 1 and prompt 2 together. I had them to put a disclaimer that why they were together, and for the evaluator to be able to see that they had combined all of that work, so it would not create a problem for them when it came, you know, their evaluation. For me, I had no problem with it. I just don't want you to get in trouble when it comes evaluation time. So please make sure that you are following the template as closely as possible. And if you do have a question about something, you know, it's easier to just reach out to Dr. Revis and me and say, is it okay to do so and so? And we can direct you then, so that you won't have to go back and make a lot of changes if for some reason we don't think that it would be a wise idea. Dr. Revis, any comments on that before we move on? Okay, you're muted. You're muted, Dr. Revis.
I'm sorry. I don't think
okay.
I had anybody put the
Okay.
1 and 2 together. So for my students, you're good the way you are.
Okay, but I just wanted to, for the 3 students that I had, I wanted to make sure that they knew I'm okay with it, and I can make sure that it's okay when it goes to, because of how it was done and what I've asked you to do. If you do what I ask you to do, you'll be okay in my evaluation, and I can make sure that you're okay when it goes to the evaluator. So just know that. Want to point out, let's go to, I want to go to AAPTEL helpful hints. This is task 3. Now, I want to point out this, and Dr. Revis, if you would chime in, as we went over this last week and we've gone over it step by step, but I want to point out some things again. You are at a point now, you're going to develop a growth plan or a staff development plan. It's called a growth plan here, but it's for a teacher empowerment leadership growth plan. Now, remember again, there's certain things you must do for task 3. And if you don't do it, I can promise you this, you will be marked down by the evaluator. You will not have a chance of a 4 if you do not do this. So I'm telling you again, you must present task 3 must be presented to your principal. Task 3, and I've got in here that, to consider, it's not an option. I need to go back and rewrite this to say it's not an option. You must present to a selection of your whole staff if you can, but if you can't, to a selection of the staff at your school. You must show evidence of presenting that as well, simply because when it goes to the evaluator, they've got a place where it just simply says if you have done it or you haven't done it. If you haven't done it, guess what? Automatically, if one of them's not done, you will not make a 4. You won't have a chance of it. Am I right, Dr. Revis, on that?
You are correct. Yes, you
Okay,
are correct.
So please make sure. Now, when you're doing your presentations, and I know that this is kind of putting the cart before the horse, but I think it's important that you, as you're doing the task 3, that you keep your focus on what you've got to do. You've got to present. You are going, it's like standing in front of the school board. You've got to present to your administration and to your staff, and you got to know what you're talking about. So everything's going to be based on what you've done, your research in task 1, the practicum work that you did based on your research in task 2. But this is what your presentation must include these 4 things, but not limited to this. A report of best practices. Now, Dr. Revis, where would they go back and look at the best practices and deciding what they're going to say in this presentation? Where would they go back and look?
From task 1.
Task 1, everything you did in task 1 is all about best practices. So when you're putting your presentation together, your PowerPoint, however I would say do a PowerPoint and have some talking points there. Go back to task 1. You're going to get your best practices from there. Okay, you're going to talk to your principal about a visual checklist. Dr. Revis, where would they find that?
Well, now I'm assuming the visual checklist is either the survey or the walkthrough form that they did.
Well, I'm going to say that it's both of them. It says A,
Okay.
but I'm saying that they really need to talk about their survey and their teacher walkthrough checklist there.
I agree, both.
So where are they going to find that?
They're going to find that in prompt 2 of task 1, where they identified it.
Right.
Now, they're going to talk about,
and they're going to show the results of it where?
in task 2.
In task 2. You've done everything you need to talk about. You've already done it. So in your talking points, number 1, your best practices, task 1, visual checklist, task 1 and task 2. Well, and your best practices, you're going to really talk about that some in task 2 as well, but mainly in task 1. Then your gap analysis. Now, Dr. Revis did a great PowerPoint presentation on the gap analysis. Dr. Revis, where are they going to find the information they need to talk about the gap analysis?
Well, they identified their gaps in task 2 that they turned in last week and that they're working on refining. So the gaps, you've already talked about them. And, you probably want to show areas of strength, but you've got to show the gaps.
Right. And when you do this, you're simply going to say to your principal, you're the expert here. You are the expert. You've done the work. So you're going to say that you know, research says, and you're going to look at all of those areas. You're going to say, research says this about teacher recruitment or teacher efficacy or this. But when I was, according to our teacher surveys, and then according to our most recent teacher working conditions survey, and the one that you administered, and you figure out what it's going to be in there. You know, this is what I found in our school, or this is what it's showing. You've got to be very candid about some things. Now, you got to be careful too. You don't want to offend your administration. So be very delicate in how you say things, but don't shy away from telling the truth. Okay. And then you're going to do that as much as you need to. And again, this is a strong presentation. This is a very strong presentation, or should be. And then you're going to, after you've done all of that, you're going to lead into this. You're going to say, and as a result of all of this, I'd like to present to you a growth plan for improvement as it relates to teacher leadership and teacher empowerment at our school. And then you go into the growth plan that you're going to create in task 3. Now, you haven't worked a lot, if any, with your school improvement team at this point. This is a time that you can pull your school improvement team in and get some ideas from them, and you know, pick their brains for some help. You will want their support when you're making this presentation. So I would have them, you know, to help me with this and to be with me if possible, you know, to support me with this. Now, you've got to prove that you have presented. Now, it's highly recommended that you record this presentation. Highly recommended. Now, what if your principal says, well, I'm not going to allow recording? Well, you can't do it if they say you can't do it. So you've got to come up with you should have an agenda showing who was in attendance. You should have a roster of who's in attendance. You should have an agenda of your presentation. If you do a PowerPoint presentation, and you should show the slides embedded in your work. You should also, I would, you know, this is part of qualitative research. I would actually have some narrative in there. I would add, you know, talk about reflection of what that experience was and what happened, the interaction that you had between, you know, your principals. What did they have to say? If they said anything, what lights came on with teachers? Did they have anything to say? I would have some dialogue about that in there as well. Dr. Revis, you have any comments on that?
Yes, I certainly would write about the reaction from your admin or your principal or your admin team, because what the evaluator is looking for, they want to see how likely it is some of your strategies in this growth plan are going to be implemented. Doesn't mean we have to, but they're looking to see true evidence that you did make the presentation, and there was some discussion around some of the identified strategies.
Right. And again, you see these 10 headings here. Every one of these 10 headings must be narratively addressed in task 3 as it relates to what your growth plan is going to be look like. This is why you need to get with your and I would come prepared with some things ahead of time. But then when you come, they can help generate some additional thoughts that will help you, you know, complete your task here. But I would go ahead, I would map out, you know, as it relates to what you've learned from task 1 and task 2, you know, what should a vision for positive school environment in your school look like? Because that's going to become a part of your growth plan. and all of these areas. Now, what I want to do now is I'm going to come out of this and I'm going to go to, let me pull this up. I want to go to, this is where I want to go. Okay. This is task 3 of a student that Dr. Revis and I previously had. Now, I want you to notice, Dr. Revis, if you would just start off, this is her introduction right here.
Right. Well, she just starts out by saying after she collected her data, then she tried to solicit a group of teachers to get with her to look at the data and then to help her develop the growth plan. And she talks about all that, how she's done that. Zoom conference, I guess this was probably last spring when we were all Zooming for a year now. And it talks about how she sent out the agenda and what was discussed. I mean, she goes into a lot of information about what she did to set up that meeting.
And now, and again, yours may look different than this, but she introduces what she's doing. That's the whole point. She introduces what she's doing. How you do it may be differently from how this student did it, but there's a lead in before she just goes into a vision for positive school environment. Then when she gets there, I want you to notice what she's done. She kind of talks about it relates to the research, Dr. Revis. The hope of all schools is to have a positive school environment. During our meeting and in communication with administration, everyone was in agreement that our action plan needed to consider the overall school environment. As researched by, you see, she pulled the research in there as she was talking about. Now, she went on to say, we wanted to keep a focus on allowing teachers to step out of their classrooms and present content they felt comfortable presenting to other teachers in the school. You see, empowerment. She's talking about things that's going to make things better, more positive at the school. They're looking for things. Now, yours may look differently than that, but I want you to get the idea that you taught the language of the research that you've already done, you know, what the research says, and then what you actually experience. All of that is going to be intertwined, interwoven in how you're going to approach task 3. Task 1 and task 2 will become interwoven into task 3 as you write it and as you plan.
And make sure that, yeah, and make sure there's a, I'm sorry.
Okay, you're muted, Dr. Revis.
I'm sorry. Make sure there's a strong connection. There has to be a connection, but what your data sets revealed in task 2 to what you're doing in task 3.
Right.
Everybody's will look differently.
Right. And then again, it goes on to you know, the next one. Number 2, documentation to support identified needs. She said, in analyzing data from both the teacher survey and classroom walkthrough, see, she talked about those tools, those instruments that you developed or that you used in task 1 and task 2. She's talking about it in task 3. We determined that professional development, effective digital tool, informative assessment usage in lessons, and ensuring teachers are given the opportunity to be decision makers and leaders are areas in need of improvement at this school. They have specifically identified some things already. Then, Dr. Revis, the list of strategies or strategic indicators of success.
Right. And so one of the things that in schools now that we always talk about as being one of the biggest indicators of success is the positive impact on student learning. And so they really focused and connected their growth plan. If we grow as teachers, then the ultimate result is our student will grow as well. So, you know, she talked a little bit here about how that teacher growth will impact student learning.
Right.
And then we go on to specific short-term and long-term goals. And this is where you get down into the meat of your action plan. And your growth plan is, remember, it focuses on professional development and opportunities for that growth. And so she's talking here about some long-term and short-term goals, and that aligns directly to what you're going to put in your template. And then she goes more specifically into the different activities. And so you can see these activities will allow. The first activity is, and so on and so forth. Narratively describe what is in that growth plan.
Right. And I had some students that actually said that their school did not do walkthroughs. You know what? That should be a recommendation, that walkthroughs are considered for your school. You've done a lot of work to maybe you're going to be the start of something good for your school based on that's what we're hoping all this is going to result in anyway. Then a plan to communicate progress with vital stakeholders. And she goes on to say the initial communication of this action plan occurred when it occurred to administrators and the leadership dimension of our school improvement team via Zoom. And you still may be dealing with this because everybody's at a different place based on COVID right now. I presented the data from the teacher survey and walked through blah, blah, blah. I did a PowerPoint. See, she's talking about everything that she's done, ways to keep communication out there and make teachers and administration aware of what's being proposed and what's going on. And then, when is this going to happen? When will it begin? What will be the duration of it? And your principal may say, well, we know the year's ending. There's not a whole lot you can do this year, but your goal should be that that you can revisit this with your administration this summer, and hopefully you can begin next school year implementing what you're proposing. That would be the ultimate goal. Dr. Revis, plan for stakeholder involvement and buy-in.
Right, and you've heard me say this before. We're talking about how do we get our staff to buy in. And that's where you as a leader have to motivate and to corral your staff into the importance of an action plan and how these steps will ultimately improve student learning. And so you have to inspire, and you hate to say it, but you have to motivate, but there has to be a plan for how we're going to get that stakeholder buy-in. And that's the key to effective leadership, I believe, anyway.
I do too. And then again, specific roles and responsibilities for this plan. Who's going to do what? When they're going to do it? In this plan, responsibilities are shared across the school. Although the administrative team and curriculum coaches are predominantly responsible for overseeing the plan in the beginning with identifying effective teachers and scheduling presentations, identified effective teachers become responsible, providing high quality professional development as well. So you see everybody that's going to be involved in helping implement this action plan and who they are and what they're going to do must be identified in the plan. And Dr. Revis, formative and summative assessment criteria.
Okay. All right. So here's the piece that we tend to have a misnomer. When we think in education, when we're working with children, we think formative assessment is that ongoing assessment that informs our instruction on a daily basis. Formative assessment here is about adults. How do we make sure the adults are implementing what we say they're going to implement? And of course, your summative assessment typically is the student learning outcomes. So don't forget to talk about the adults when you talk about formative.
And the thing is, remember when when teachers improve in their teaching practices, if their efficacy is improved, everything, we know that the end result is it should be improved student achievement, the outcome. And that's, I mean, that's the ultimate result of everything anyway. We improve teachers so that students can improve. As principals, you improve your teachers so they can improve their students. That's it. And see what they said, summative assessment used for the action plan is found in students learning from differentiated lessons. Again, the results of what teachers do. If teachers are better at their craft, if they feel better at their craft, then it's going to filter over into the students, or it should. Then Dr. Revis, if you would talk about the graphic organizer.
Okay, and so this is your template, same template that you used in the AAPTEL. You fill it out the same way. And of course, all the narrative work beforehand talks about each of these pieces of the template. So make sure that, you know, what you're talking about in your narrative in those different sections that we just went over, it's connected and it's coming from this template. A lot of times, a lot of times I will say, you know, do your template first before you start writing your narrative, because sometimes it's easier to write from, you know, a graphic organizer.
And notice this person has listed 3 activities. You may have 5 activities. You may have 6 activities, but you do need to at least have, I wouldn't be a minimum of 3. Wouldn't you say, Dr. Revis, in a plan?
I would not go less than 3.
And 3 is cutting it short. I like 4 or 5 is what I like, you know, in a good plan, but you know, don't go less than 3. Well, she's got more. I just didn't realize it. She's got 5.
And don't go over 6. Don't go over 6 either. So, you know.
Yeah, you don't want to make it too big. Yeah.
Yeah. So keep it at 4 or 5 strategies range.
Okay. And then now what she chose to do, she chose to just move everything, her presentation, everything to her appendices. However, I'm just saying, I would encourage you after you finish this right here, I would put my work right up under there. I would have my any narrative work I have about, you know, about my presentation. I would have my proof of my presentations. I would have it all there, and then turn around and put it back in my appendices as well. But this gives this, I mean, you've got everything there for your evaluator to see without having to look for it. What do you say that, Dr. Revis, as well?
I totally agree. I would do a summary paragraph and talk about, again, that presentation, and put your slides, embed your slides into your narrative and in your appendices as well. Don't take any chances about that evaluator overlooking the fact that you've made that presentation.
And have somebody to take a picture of you presenting. Yeah. And I would put that picture in there as well. So, and then the last one is task 4. And remember task 4. Okay, Amanda, go ahead.
My school, we're remote on Wednesdays. And so we have Thursday, and then we're out Friday to Friday. I'm concerned about getting this presentation in before the draft is due on Sunday, because I won't see my staff but one day, and I'm really not sure my principal's going to be really gung-ho about that.
Okay, and if that's the case, and that may be the case because of spring break, just put a note in, any of you that would be, just reach out to Dr. Revis and me, just put a note in there, and we know that you're going to do that as soon as you get back. We understand that may be the case. We've got a little
action plan. I can turn everything in but the actual summary of the meeting.
And just tell us when it's planned. That's all we're going to look for in that, and then we can look for it in your final work that comes in.
Okay, thank you.
You are welcome. Thanks for asking or mentioning that. And then task 4, remember, task 4 is just simply completing the remaining 9 competencies left from the 21 that you were introduced to with the AAPTEL. And then you'll be through. We'll talk to you after that. After next week, we'll talk to you about, where you are with things and begin putting the AAPTEL together. Any questions about any more questions about the AAPTEL task 3 at this point? Any questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a resource to share.
Okay, go ahead, Tasha.
So when I was looking through all the teacher working conditions survey, historical data for my school, if you look on the North Carolina Teacher Working Conditions Survey site and go to, from the front page, let me see, I think it goes to frequently asked questions and resources for the 2020 survey. There is a teacher leader toolkit, a resource toolkit for school leaders. And when I pulled that out, it actually kind of walks you through setting up a plan based on your teacher working conditions survey. So if y'all are struggling with trying to figure out what you want to do, I found that and I was like, oh, I'm going to use this for task 3. So I just thought I'd share that. It's under the teacher working conditions survey. When you go to that front page and it's got the blocks on it, it's got resources and frequently asked questions and resources for the 2020 survey. And if you click in there, it's there.
Okay, thanks for sharing that, Tasha. That's good information. I want to bring this up again and show you to get accomplished. Look at task 3. Now, task 3 is loaded. The candidate works with others to create a video and record a presentation addressing prioritized needs developed in the prompt for task 3. Again, they're going to look for a recorded video because it says that in what they're evaluating you by, right, Dr. Revis? They're going to look for that.
And
the plan includes all of the following. Notice all is boldface and underline. Opportunities for teachers and staff to assume leadership and decision-making roles. Strategies for building efficacy. Structures for implementation of effective PLCs. Support and coaching of emerging school leaders. And methods for formal feedback for teachers. But then I want you to notice, what is that connecting word right there? And. Multiple uses of digital tools and or technology are consistently evident and effective. If you don't show this in your plan, I can promise you it will be marked down. So make sure that you are looking at, this is in your Blackboard, look at this and make sure, do you a checklist? As you're writing, you go back and you check, yep, I've got that. Yep, I've got that. Yep, I've got that. Yep, I've got. You need to take this and form a checklist for yourself to make sure that you are not missing any of these things. Okay?
And I would just say, guys, of all the work you do, this evaluator is going to go by this rubric right here, and they're thinking presentation with all different things. So you've got to do a presentation, and if you can record it, record it. If not, at least do your slides in there and talk about it. Make sure that's prominent in your task 3.
I do want to let you know, if you look at this, don't get scared and don't worry about it. This has not been changed, and it should have been changed. It says 13 competencies. We will make sure and remind your evaluators that you only have to do 9. So don't fret if you get there. It is only 9 competencies for task 4, and we will handle that with evaluators and remind them that this was not changed. It was not changed in the rubric well, there has not been a revision yet for it to be changed. Let me put it that way. Okay.
Any questions?
Okay. Dr. Revis, with that in mind, I'm going to move on up to
Okay.
our last thing, and I've pulled up my task stream, and this is my folio. Remember, you go to folios and web pages when you go to task stream. And Dr. Revis, if you would just talk to them briefly about what we are expecting when they go
Okay,
to
great.
this page.
Well, can you just click on communication there, Dr. Stedman? And
I will. Okay, and
let's just open up one.
actually it is. That is
That is it.
that is my communication. Yeah.
So you see right there, right underneath those tabs, it talks about, you know, that you should be pulling communication. Can you scroll back up just a little bit?
Hey, let me minimize this. Okay, go ahead. There.
Oh, up a little bit more. Right
Okay.
there.
Okay, got it.
Communication, by the time you finish your program, you should have a communication from Artifact 1. You've done that one this semester. Artifact 6, you haven't done, and one open-ended. Now, in all reality, the evaluators, and we're not going to be that picky, but guys, you got one for communication. You should have already uploaded it, and it comes from your AAPTEL, and that's Artifact 1. And look what this person's put in there. Week 1 agenda and week 11.
And this is mine. This is one I created. And
okay.
I wanted to show them this too. Let's just say, for instance, I'm in community, and just say I want to, oh, let me see. I want to do an attachment.
Mhm.
I want to add. Okay, so I go to upload from my computer, add a file. It takes me to my documents, and I want to put today's agenda in there. So I go to week 12, agenda March 30th. I click on that. I open it up. And then I upload and close. And you see, I have just added another agenda of a way that I'm communicating to someone. Okay. Dr. Revis?
And then you're going to have an option to also embed some text to describe how you believe this agenda that you've uploaded meets the communication competency. You do that with just where it says text and image. Is that correct? Daryl, help us.
Well,
no, main text.
no, they
I think
have a
it's the
place
main
they can,
text.
the additional content sections, and this goes down at the bottom. And I can't, it's not going to show on mine.
I think if you go to text is where you write your little descriptor. Now, we're not asking again for a paragraph. We are asking
There it is.
for a brief description of what is the artifact and how it relates to communication. This is my artifact from the AAPTEL, where I communicated with my PLC about upcoming meetings. That's all you need to say. You don't need to go into any great lengthy detail.
Right.
Okay. Daryl, is that correct? Is that where you put your text in?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Now, Daryl, once you've saved it and you return, when you return back and you're through with, let's say that you, and again, just a reminder, don't just submit every one of them to us. Only submit the ones that you have put work in there for us to review. Okay, so Daryl, let's just say that you've completed communication, change management, creative thinking, and delegation. Okay, you've done those, and you want Dr. Revis to look at them. Tell the class what you did from that point.
Okay, so when I click on request comments, it'll give me another box will appear. So for example, if I was on communication and I want request comments, once I open that other box, it will actually give me a checklist and I can check which ones I have done, and it will only send those particular ones. And then there's just a continue button at the bottom, and you just click on continue and it will submit it.
And if you don't, let me quit share, stop share. And thanks, Daryl. And if you don't do that, what Daryl just said, see, Dr. Revis and I can't see that. We don't have that access, but you do. If you don't do that, then what happens, every single one of them, you can only do communication, but if you don't do that, then guess what Dr. Revis and I have to do? We have to open up all 21 of them, and we have to make a comment to clear it out. So please, and I know mistakes are made sometime, I realize that, but please, please help us out on that, because it takes a lot of our time away when we have to do things like that. And I mean, it takes a lot of time to go in here and do what we do. But anybody else that have done that's done any of their competencies, do you have any comments that you would like to make in addition to what Daryl has just said? Okay. Dr. Revis, anything else that you need to say?
Well, I will just say this. You know, after you finish your coursework, task 4 of the AAPTEL, you've got to get into these competencies, and it's time consuming, guys. That's why if you've got 10 minutes that you can do one, go ahead and get it done. Because the more you do now, the less you're going to have to do right there at the end. So again, I'm glad we've got that archived file from Dr. Lamb. That's really good for you to go in, and he goes step by step on how to upload even different kinds of documents. If it's a video link or whatever, he'll tell you, I think in this video, he'll tell you how to upload that. So, that's a good resource for you when you start working on your folio.
Yeah, and Lisa, that's right. You can go ahead, if you've got that many, go ahead and send them to Dr. Revis. Don't wait until you got them all done. You can send us a few at a time. Just try not to send just one at a time, unless you send us an email and just say, I want to make sure I'm doing this right. And that is okay if you're not sure about something, so that you don't mess up. But if you know what you're doing, go ahead and send us. When you do 4 or 5 or 6, then go ahead and send us, and we can go ahead and again, send us an email and let us know that you've sent us something. So I go in and I try to check it every day, but just in case. Now you're going to find in Blackboard, it's going to say, when you get there, to get to week 13, some of you are going to look at it and you're going to panic, because it clearly says in there that your competency folio is due week 13. We purposely put it there because guess what? If we didn't put it there, guess when some of you would be waiting to do it? Week 15, and I'm telling the truth. But anyway, so we are going to look and see how much. We hope that you've got it all done by week 13. But I promise you, every one of you better have something in there week 13. Don't you let week 13 go by and we don't have something that something substantial that we can look at. You may not be quite through yet based on where you are with other things, and we'll work with you. If we've built some time in there towards the end so that we can work with you if that's needed. But if we didn't put week 13 in there, I know how we are. We would have a tendency to probably put it off and say, well, I've got time. And then you're going to stress and you're going to say, I wish I had listened to Dr. Revis and Dr. Stebbin, and I wish I had done. So we're going to make you do something now. In fact, if you haven't done anything, my challenge to you is, Dr. Revis and I would love to see something before this week's over with from every one of you. Okay,
And guys, let me just say, you should have all of these artifacts,
you do.
either from what you've done in your APSEL and APTEL or what you've done from your clinical intern. So don't think you've got to go create all these things. You should have them. But I agree. Yeah, I want to see something from everybody in your class, Dr. Stedman. Let's see
And
who gets the
likewise.
most in. You want to have a little.
That's right.
competition?
And if I haven't heard from you, at least with something by Sunday, you're gonna hear from me. And you're gonna hear from Dr. Revis. We need to see something by Sunday so we can know that you know what you're doing, okay? If we haven't heard from you.
And I can say that so I spent all of Saturday working on all of my APSEL competencies. I know I sent 800 emails to Dr. Stedman, and I think
That
he
was
probably
okay,
wanted
Jamie.
to
I'm okay
hit
with
me.
that.
Okay. But like, it's once you get into the flow, it's really pretty simple. Like once I started, I just wanted to finish with that whole, like, get all the APSELs done. So I don't, it seems overwhelming at first, but it's really not.
Thank you for sharing that, Jamie. And I didn't even have to pay her to say that. She said it on her own.
I have a question.
Okay.
When you attached the document, and I don't know if I did this part correctly, can we put our description in that little text box next to where we do the attachment? Because there's a little box, that's where I put mine.
It'll work. And again, I think there's more. It's like, well, I live on the East Coast. It's like going to Fayetteville, North Carolina, or going to Fort Bragg. There's more than one way to get there. I think when you look in there's more than one way to do some of that, Lisa. But that is a correct way.
Okay, there was the main text, and then there was a little text box where
Yeah.
you attach them. So I just wanted to make sure I was doing it right.
Yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
And guys, if I can't see it, Lisa, I'll let you know. But I think it will work that way.
I do too.
I can see it on my side.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
good.
then we should be able to see it as well.
Okay,
We should.
thank
Okay.
you.
Okay, any other questions before we, next week, you've got a lot to do this week, but next Tuesday, we're not coming on as a class like this. However, Dr. Revis and I are going to be here next Tuesday more as a support, as a coach. And if you are running into any issues, you can call us anytime or reach out to us anytime, but next Tuesday specifically from 7 to 8 o'clock, Dr. Revis and I are going to come online, and you can zoom in and just say, I need to ask you about, and then you can zoom out. Dr. Revis and I will talk to each other in between times, but we'll talk to you as much as we need to talk. But we're coming online to help you next week. But if you don't need anything, you've got everything going on, well, then, you don't have to join us. It's left up to you. Okay. Dr. Revis, anything in closing?
And no coaching class this Thursday either.
Right.
I have a quick question, just thinking about the summer. This came up in our Zoom meeting, but do we need to do anything to get registered for the 603 class, or is there any steps that we should be taking now to make sure that we're good to go for the next class?
You're good to go. You will be automatically registered, Jenna, unless there's a problem somewhere. Now we're going to, before the semester's over with, we will have another town hall with Dr. Lamb specifically about your 603 class as well. So he will talk with you. In fact, we will give you some materials that you will be able to go ahead and get started on 603 actually before your classes start, so that you can get ahead of the game a little bit. But Dr. Lamb will join us for another town hall that I'll announce after next week.
Do you happen to know when 603 is supposed to start?
Dr. Revis, do you have that in front of you? Well, yes, I can. Let me pull my planner.
It's May
out.
19th. It's May 19th because
May
I just
19th.
looked and it was in our schedule already.
Yeah, I know that we start that week, and I will tell you, most of the 603 class, well, if you're with Dr. Lamb, I don't know who's who's with who yet. But if you're with Dr. Lamb, he teaches on Wednesdays. Some of the others, they may teach on a night other than Wednesday, but a lot of times the 603 classes are taught on Wednesday evenings. He leaves that up to your instructor, but he likes for them to be on the same night that he's teaching, so that if he needs to pull all the 603s in for a town hall, everybody's there. He's got an audience without people having to give up 2 different nights for that.
And guys, let me reemphasize what Dr. Stedman just said. Because our summer session is so short, it is accelerated. And that's why we're at week 12. And you may think, oh, I've got 3 weeks to burn. No, we go ahead and get you started on 603 because you've got to get started now on that. But Dr. Lamb will do his town hall, and then you'll know what to do to get started. So we try to front load you here a little bit.
Dr. Revis, I think that they're your town hall, and I know we've gone over, but they're asking questions. I think your town hall is week 15. April the 9th is actually scheduled for April the 19th, which is
That's what our syllabus says, April the 9th.
April the 19th, and that is going to be on a Monday night. And you will not have class with us on Tuesday, but Dr. Revis and I will be here just like we will next week for anybody that needs us, because many of you will be finishing up with stuff. Some of you will be finished by then. But we'll have town hall on Monday. Then that Tuesday of week 15 will be kind of drop in as you need to drop in, and we'll help you as you need help. And then we'll talk to you about closure on the we'll come back on the 16th, on the week 16, because we do want to speak to everybody then and just kind of bring some closure to our class. Okay. Well, good night, everybody.
Guys, I hope you have a good Easter break or spring break if you're having your spring break next week. But again, we'll be here for your support.
Yeah. Call us if you need us.
Thanks. Have a good evening.
Okay, bye-bye.